I'm sure you've heard a lot of different things about Lineart, why your sketch looks better, and tricks to draw better line work, and I'm sure some of those tricks help, but if you really want to draw better lines, you need to fix the problems you're having instead of just using some art hacks. So I'm just going to explain how line control works and what some of the issues are that you can run into which cause your lines to look worse. So the first thing is that you need to work on controlling your lines better. Line control is a skill that requires practice just like every other art skill. Some people are naturally better at controlling their arm than others, but this only gets you so far. You still need to practice and actively think about controlling your lines to get better line work. In the beginning, you'll probably see a lot of artists draw their lines like this. When this is done unintentionally, there are multiple problems with it. The biggest one probably being that your line trajectories will be inconsistent, and this makes it harder to get the form of an object correct. At the base level, line control is about controlling the trajectory of your line. The line trajectory is the path that a line follows. If we place 1 point here, 1 point here, and 1 point here, we've defined the trajectory of our line. So if we want to draw the line, we go from one point to the other, and then we continue the curve down to the last point. These trajectories are important because this is what allows us to draw forms accurately. Every form has lines that need to follow a specific trajectory if we want to draw something that looks like that form. Let's say we want to draw this. We can place a point over here, point over here, point over here, and then if we want to accurately capture this form, our line will have to go through these points and follow that trajectory. If we continue that, we can place a point here, point here, point here, and point here, and then the trajectory of our line will go like this. If we want to accurately capture this form, our line will have to follow this very specific trajectory. If we don't get these trajectories right, we'll end up drawing something completely different. And whether or not this looks good doesn't really matter because the point is, we intended to draw this, but our result is this. This is usually what happens when people draw their lines without giving much thought to what the line should look like. What ends up happening is that you end up with this mess of lines that all have their own individual trajectories. Now, technically, something that happens is that our brains simplify and ignore the information, and we start to kind of see the line that we think is correct. When you clean up the line work, you have to decide for yourself which line is correct, and if you're not that experienced, you most likely won't know where to place these lines. It's even worse because objects are usually made of multiple sets of lines. The easiest way I can show this is with a box. We have one line here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we end up with 9 sets of these messy lines. If we try to clean up this line following this particular line, and then we clean up this line, following this line, and then lastly we clean up this line following this line, you can see that these lines don't line up anymore. This is all because the trajectory of this line was not properly considered. The trajectory should have gone from this point to this point. It's easy to know that you did something wrong with the box because you can see that your lines don't line up, but when you have something more complicated like this, for example, it's extremely hard to tell. These messy lines can also throw off the volume of the form that you're drawing. Let's say we have 2 cylinders and we want them to be a similar size. For this bottom cylinder, it's pretty easy to decide how big the cylinder needs to be. But for the top cylinder, it's a bit more ambiguous. We could, for example, place a line here, which gives the cylinder a certain thickness, but at the same time, we could also place a line here, which gives the cylinder a different thickness. This is again because we didn't properly think about what the trajectory of our line should have been in the beginning, And now we're having problems with the volume. This whole line trajectory thing is one of the main things that can go wrong when you go from sketch to cleaned up line work. It's not easy to fix this because it depends on your actual drawing ability, but the best thing you can do is slow down and think about what the line should look like before you draw the line. And then when you actually draw the line, take it slow and make sure the line follows the path it needs to. This also leads into the second thing, how to actually control the line. This mostly comes down to how good your arm's ability is when it comes to moving the pencil. This is a mechanical skill, so it takes a very long time to get better at this, and because of that, I recommend practicing this on a daily basis, which is also why we do these daily line work drills in the Discord server. Now, there are 4 ways to move your arm when drawing. We can move just our fingers, which gives us a range of motion like this. We can move our wrist, which gives us a slightly bigger range of motion. We can move from our elbow. And then lastly, we can move with our shoulder. The way you should move your arm depends on the type of line you need to draw. For short lines, you obviously want to use your wrist or your fingers. Now, there is the problem of certain body parts only being able to draw in certain directions. Like, for example, your wrist can only move in this direction. Same thing with your elbow can only move in this direction, whereas your fingers and your shoulders can move in every direction. So when it comes to drawing things like ellipses or circles, most of the time you want to use just your fingers or your shoulder. Of course, sometimes you need to go from a short line to a long line, and that's when you need to combine the parts of your arm that you use. So don't use just your fingers, don't use just your shoulder. Ideally, you want to get good at using everything in conjunction. When you're practicing how to control your lines, I recommend drawing your lines kind of slowly. The reason for this is that it gives you time to think about what the line should look like, which helps you with the line trajectory, and also doing something slowly requires a lot more control than when you're doing it quickly. Your line might become a little bit shaky, but as long as you get the trajectory right, the form will look good. And you can always do a second pass where you clean up the line a little bit. So basically, drawing good line art comes down to 2 things: being able to control your arm so that you can draw the exact line that you want, and understanding how line trajectories work. I think there are 2 ways that you can practice line control. The first way is doing some line drills, like filling up pages with whatever type of line you want to practice, and the second way would be to slow down while you're drawing and try to draw all of your lines in one go instead of having a bunch of smaller lines. This forces you to actually control your lines instead of hoping that you drew the correct line. When it comes to understanding line trajectory, this isn't really something you can practice specifically. You just get better at it as your other art skills improve. But I think slowing down while you're drawing will give you time to think about what the trajectory should be. Drawing from reference can also help a lot because you can see what the trajectory should be and then you can replicate it. So that's basically it. There is no secret or trick that's going to let you draw better line art. You just need to improve your overall art skills and start thinking about what your lines need to look like. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next. Recently, I've also been giving out these homework exercises that you can do, and right now we're on week 5, so you can check these out if you want. And aside from that, I guess I'll catch you all next time.